Hello, and welcome back to Book Critique, a show where we talk about books and critiquing them. My name is Imogen, and today I wanted to talk about Peter Pan by J.M Barrie. I really liked the book, but I was really surprised by some things based on my opinions of the original Disney animated film. So I kind of wanted to talk about those differences and maybe express some things that I would like to see in the future Disney live-action film. So obviously this is going to have some spoilers from both the film, Peter Pan, the animated film by Disney, and the book by J.M Barrie. If you haven't read the book and you loved the film, I really recommend the book because it does have a ton more character detail as far as Peter and Hook go. I feel like Peter is a little bit more villainous in a way, which is kind of weird, where you kind of picture him being like very lighthearted, but there's also some really interesting moral codes that he has that's really cool. And Hook is a much more... In the film, he cries quite a bit, but in the book, you feel like you know him a bit better and you understand him, even if you don't necessarily like him. One thing that really struck me was that in the film, Peter doesn't seem to know what a mother is, whereas in the book, he's kind of obsessed with the idea of a mother. He would like go and listen to Wendy's mother's, Mrs. Darling's stories, and his story is much more tragic when you understand his relationship with his own mother. In the chapter Wendy's Story, Peter says, "I thought like you that my mother would always keep the window open for me, so I stayed away for moons and moons and moons, and then flew back, but the window was barred, for mother had forgotten all about me, and there was another little boy sleeping in my bed." So now we know why Peter hates adults. He obviously doesn't want to grow up, and he never wanted to grow up, and that's why he left. But, you know, the fact that he viewed this as an injustice or something that was unfair, which if you read the book is a big part of his character. He always wants things to be fair, and he feels like the adult world isn't that fair. And this is why. So I just think that that's really interesting backstory on understanding Peter's personality that I would like to see in any future films. I also thought that this point was interesting. It says, "He had ecstasies innumerable that other children can never know, but he was looking through the window at the one joy from which he must forever be barred." So he does have a desire to have a family and a part in the adult world, but he doesn't like all of the unfairness that comes with it and like the dealings with money. Another thing that kind of bugged me about the movie that I hope would be rectified in future films is the timeline. I feel like you're taking something out of the story when there are no consequences in the real world for the children's actions. So in the movie, it's like it takes place over one night and the parents never realize that they were gone. Whereas in this book, the parents are devastated and so is Nana, and everybody's kind of like coping and crying and doing ridiculous things as a means to kind of express their sadness in this situation. And I think that that's important. It's an important lesson for children. And I that's kind of what frustrates me about the film, is a lot of those deeper lessons that are really interesting to me, and I think that would be good for children to have, were kind of stripped from the Disney film. And obviously, you know, there was like a lot of violence in the book that I'm happy that they took out for children. You know, you don't need to have Peter Pan just saying like, "I kill tons of people all the time." That's not really what I'm asking for. But those deeper meanings that are kind of a bit melancholy, I think are good to have in the story. We don't need to just have everything like kind of jolly and childish all the time. And that kind of leads us into the ending of the film. Basically, Wendy just says to her parents, "I'm ready to grow up," and they just kind of accept that and life moves on and Peter leaves. But in the book, it's a much more realistic, I guess, considering the circumstances, ending, where basically Wendy's finds herself waiting for Peter for like 2 years, and he shows up a year late and completely forgot that he had missed so much time, because he's in Neverland where people forget things all the time. And then he comes back much later when she's much older and can't fly or be with him anymore, and it's really sad. Like, I was super choked up, and I think that that would be a kind of more interesting ending, because then the legacy like lives on in their family, and Peter can play with her daughter and then her daughter after that. But there were some like pretty like deep lines. Like there's line that says like Mrs. Darling was dead and forgotten. And then like when Peter sees that Wendy's grown up, he's upset with her and he's like, "You promised not to." Making unrealistic promises is something that kids do all the time, but they can't, like, the adult world kind of shows you that you can't live up to those promises. So I don't know, obviously you can't have all of these really sad parts because that would make a kind of depressing movie and parents probably wouldn't want their children to see that movie. But I do think that some of it, or maybe hints at it a bit more instead of just kind of like shoving all of that under the rug, would be really good to have in the film. Especially a live action film, I think actors, if you choose the right cast, could really convey that without having so much dialogue, but maybe just in their facial expressions or something that kids might pick up on as they grow up. And another thing, the Neverbird. The Neverbird! That was such a cool part of the story! I would love if the Neverbird was in the film. I just thought that was, like, really cool. So that's my comparison between the film and the book Peter Pan. I really hope that in the live action film they can capture some of these deeper meanings and dig a little bit below the surface, because I think it would be not only a more well-rounded story and a richer story, but I think it would be good for children to have some of these really cool lessons that J.M. Barrie wrote in the story. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, you might also enjoy some of my other videos somewhere around here. Bye!